Welcome to the Kindness Matters podcast. I'm your host, Mike Rathbun. As you might have guessed, this podcast is dedicated to kindness. Kindness is a superpower that each and every one of us possesses, a force that is strong enough to drastically impact your life and the lives of those around you for the better. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about kindness, and let's talk about how each and every one of us can use kindness to change the world. Welcome to the Kindness Matters podcast. I am your host, Mike Rathbun, and I am so honored today. I have a fantastic guest. That's going to have to be edited out. My guest today is Kari Petruch, and she is a Wall Street bestselling author, an Amazon bestselling author, and a Barnes & Noble bestselling author of the book Get Out of the Box and Into the Play. And in addition, Kari has her own coaching business, Highest Intent Life Coaching. She specializes in helping build relationships and keep relationships. I want to welcome today Kari Petruch. Welcome, Kari.
Hi. Thank you for having me, Mike. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, the honor is all mine. So you have been, well, first of all, you are very tied to the military, and thank you for that. How did you get involved? Is it just a matter of being in Texas that you ended up in the military?
Oh, I'd like to say so. I had a first marriage, and that first marriage took me all over the world, and I also did serve for the military too in the Army. So,
but you are very dedicated to the people who have served.
And very dedicated to the people who are serving and have served. Yes. I'm very, very passionate about our veterans.
Yeah, sometimes I served, but I often feel less than because my service was, I always say, I fought the Cold War.
Mike, me too. I say that too because I did not go downrange. I did not do combat. I didn't have that. But I remember that, I served as a civilian and helped our soldiers. So, we need all kinds of people. And during the Cold War, we needed us too. The fact that we gave up our lives to serve our country is pretty amazing.
Yes, I agree. And even though that sounds like bragging, I feel like I agree. It seems like I'm bragging, and we don't. Yeah, we're taught as children not to brag, right? So now, in the process of being attached to the military, you had, and honestly, Kari, you are probably one of the kindest people I've ever met. Your work with military families and helping educating military families about the IDEA Act is so inspiring. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. It's been many moons ago, and the IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, was brand spanking new, and we had a lot of parents who didn't understand how the federal government could serve their children or help them to help their children in the way of education. And so I spent about 6 months familiarizing myself with that act and understanding what it means and how it can be applied to parents and helping them to go into the school system that they happen to be in. Of course, military families move around all the time, so each school system changes. So I help them to go into that school system, speak to the building principal, know what their children's rights were under the law, and knowing what their rights were under under the law as parents, and helping
Okay, good.
them to help their children to get the best education possible.
So, just for those of us, or for the people that don't know, what was the Individuals with Disability Act? What did that do for the kids?
The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act made sure that children, the way it began was children 3 or older began to be educated at the age of 3, and then fully implemented was birth on.
Oh,
So
okay.
it made sure that children with disabilities or children with special needs got all of the education, all of their educational needs met under the law. So my particular interest was that my daughter is deaf, and I have a son who's hard of hearing and Asperger's. So it was a personal vocation
Right.
for me to learn that act and learn what her rights and what my responsibilities were as a parent and what the school's responsibilities were under the law.
And then you found out for yourself and you said, hey, other people might need this information.
Yeah, that's what happened. And a friend of mine, Mary Beth, and I began having seminars where we invited parents to come in, just as a volunteer thing, parents to come in. Army Community Services, ACS, offered us a room where we could do this, and the parents came in and we helped to educate them. I also volunteered as a parent advocate for children whose parents could not attend these individual education program meetings. So,
Sure. Okay. Wow. Um, and so what was the driving force behind starting your coaching business? How did that come
um,
about?
I've always had a passion for relationships. I've always believed that relationships can be what you make them, and they can be miserable or they can be joyful. And I've had a passion to help couples see the joy in their relationships and to lean on that joy. There's always going to be hard times. I'm not a la la woman who thinks that people don't have hard
No
times.
rose-colored glasses over there.
No, well, a little bit. I got a little bit of rose-colored glasses because in everything, I have a philosophy that every single thing that I have been through in my life, and I've been through a lot, has led me to where I am today, and that is to help people to have more joyful lives. And I love to help couples, especially when they have that hard time of transitioning from midlife or their children grow up and go away. And I want to help them to not turn around and say, "Who are you? What are you doing in my house?"
Well, that could be
And
really, I'm sorry, go ahead. I
and
apologize.
and it's a passion for me that you can rekindle and begin to date each other again. The ultimate goal is to get younger couples to realize to keep that alive. But I also want to help those who are transitioning from empty nester into there's nothing keeping you from dating each other again. Why you're not holding each other's hands, walking around the house naked? I mean, come on. You don't have kids around. There's no reason why you can't have that fun that you had when you were first married.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But okay, and you talk about this and your connection to the military. Do you do a lot of coaching? Because I remember when I was in and I would go TDY for 6 weeks.
Hmm.
And my wife was at home basically running the house. We didn't have
Hmm.
children, but the wife takes care of everything when the husband is overseas or vice versa. And one spouse is left at home and they're in charge of everything. And then the other spouse comes back. That can be hard on a relationship, can it not?
Oh, the transition is hard on a relationship. There's no two ways about it. Even in the best of circumstances, there is a transition for military families when the spouse could be husband or wife.
Right.
Goes these days, it's husband or wife. goes away, and the spouse is left. They serve just as much as the military active duty service member does, because they do keep things afloat. They do volunteer their time. They do keep things running while the spouse is gone. And my experience, and many other spouses' experience, was that, when the active duty service member comes home, they have a picture that they leave with. And that picture is of how things were when they left. And when they come back, they expect things to be exactly the same as that picture. It's kind of like you go visit a foreign country.
Right.
And this is the way it is. And then you go back 20 years later and you go, wait a minute, this wasn't here and this wasn't here. And what happened? Well, what happened was life and progress. And the same happens in relationships. And those are very difficult relationships to maintain. The divorce rate in the military is very, very, very high.
Yeah.
It is difficult to make those transitions.
Indeed. Yeah, for sure. And how about when somebody, and I don't know if these are any of your clients, but when somebody leaves the military, because that's hard too. And that could be hard on a relationship as well.
Well, yes, it can. Leaving the military, not just for the active duty service member, but if there's a long-term commitment, a short-term commitment is difficult as it is. But short-term, I say 4 years. Okay. So if it's a long-term commitment, say 10 years plus, switching is extremely difficult, and it takes 2 years. And I'll tell you why that is. The reason is because it's a closed society. This is
the military.
The military. So you go in there, all your friends are military. The first thing you talk about when you meet somebody and you get to a new duty station is, where have you been stationed? It's the groundbreaker. Right. You have the commissary, which is a grocery store, for those of you who don't know. And you have the PX, which is kind of like your local department store. You have the gas station. You have your church. You have everything you need is within that installation. And if you don't live off of the installation, you become enclosed in a world of the military. You speak military. You think military. You act military. Everything that you do is through the military. So when you transition to get out of the military, the first thing that happens is you can't ask new people that you meet, where were you stationed last time?
Well, you could, but they probably wouldn't.
Yeah, they go, what? And you start talking about your travels around the world and where you've lived, and it's not the life of being very wealthy and staying in 5-star hotels. Traveling around the world means, camping out places and taking the cheap flight and doing what you can do to travel. So
I had a high school buddy, and he went into the Army and I went into the Air Force. Mm-hmm. And he was 82nd Airborne. Yeah. Best of the best. And I was what was called in the Air Force a boom operator. So I would refuel planes in flight. And both of us ended up going to a training exercise overseas in the desert somewhere. Mm-hmm. Him in the Army, me in the Air Force. Mm-hmm. And I always used to tease him because I stayed downtown at the Hilton, and he was in a tent in the desert. And it was just that was always kind of a point for us. It was, and that's,
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I did not have it as rough as some of my fellow military friends.
Absolutely. But, you still served, and right. Being a boom operator is a very difficult job.
It trained me for absolutely nothing on the outside.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. That's true of quite a few MOSs in the service.
In-flight refueling is not really in an airline's best interest.
But during 9/11.
Well, yeah. Right.
They needed you then. Because they had to keep those planes up off the ground.
I have so many great stories. It was the best time.
Yeah.
originally I had gone into the Air Force and I wanted to be a radio DJ.
Mhm.
And I went to my recruiter and I was signing the papers and I said, this is what I want to do. And
Mhm.
he never forget, he said, "Oh yeah, you're gonna have to get that duty assignment when you get to basic." And this is one of the top 10 biggest lies they tell you, right up there with the checks in the mail. I got down to basic and came time to get your duty assignment to, your MOS. And
Mhm.
I went in and I said, "This is what I want to do."
Mhm.
And the guy laughed. They laughed for about 10 minutes. And they
Oh
said, "Okay,
wow.
what else do you want to do? Because you're not doing that." I was so disappointed. And they said, "Well, how about military police?" And they call it something, air police, or I don't know. And
Yeah.
and all I could envision was standing outside a bunch of B-52s in Fargo, North Dakota. And I said, "Nope, that's not happening." And they said, "Well, we have this one job, but it's strictly voluntary." And I'm like, "Ooh, tell me more." And that's how I ended up being a boom operator. But yeah, it was a fantastic experience. I went to places and I saw places and I did things I never could have imagined in my wildest dreams.
I
And
know it.
and it was such a great experience. But and you have within you a lot of kindness and a lot of love for the military,
I
and you
do.
have a lot of ways of expressing that.
I do. I do. Would you like to hear about some of my ideas about how you can help the military?
All of them, yes,
Oh, yes.
please.
So, um, of course, people support with money, but there are so many little things that you can do that you don't realize that people don't realize are so important. Every time you see that service member who has a hat on, and you can see because usually says U.S.
Vietnam veteran or
Army veteran or Army
right.
vet or Air Force vet, or anytime you see a hat on someone or a T-shirt that looks like there's a unit on it, and on the back usually will say Army, Air Force, Marines. They wear T-shirts. Anytime you see that, please take a moment to walk over and shake their hand and thank them for their service. They gave up their time for our country. And
Only
if you
takes a couple of seconds.
just a couple of seconds, to take the time, and I'm not talking about moms who've got three little kids running around and she's trying to keep a hold of the three little kids. Come on, let's be real. But if you have a moment and you see it, don't pass it by. If you're so inclined and have the finances, buy the dinner, pay the
Yep.
bill. It's a small thing that you can do to help our service members. But here's one thing that people don't notice. And I know that nobody likes cigarette smoking, and it's not up to me to decide that whether it's right or wrong or indifferent. But
We're
here's
not here to judge.
here's the tip. If you walk outside and you see somebody away from the door putting out a cigarette and using their foot to field strip, is what we call it.
Yep.
They're rolling off the tobacco and the paper off of the cigarette and picking that cigarette butt up to put it in the trash can. What you have is a prior service.
Yep. Yep.
What you have is
It's
there.
a dead
No
giveaway.
T-shirt, no hat, no nothing, but it's a dead giveaway. All service members are taught to field strip their cigarettes so that they don't pollute the ground. And the reason is because if you've ever had duty where you had to pick up cigarette butts, you don't ever do that again.
Right.
So,
Yep. Yep. Oh, for sure.
but that is a way, if you're so inclined and you notice it. Like I said, the world gets in the way and your life gets in the way. But if you happen to be standing outside and you see that action, you've got a prior service member, please walk up to them and say, "Did you serve our country?" And if they say yes, shake their hand, put your hand out and shake their hand, because they sacrificed their time and their life for a period of time. Doesn't matter when it was, doesn't matter. They sacrificed their time and their life in service of our country, and they deserve to be thanked for that.
Absolutely. I'm going to talk. Does that kindness, that thanking a service member,
Mhm.
because right now in this country we have an epidemic of
We do.
veterans committing suicide every
We do indeed.
22 minutes, seconds,
I
22
don't
a day.
22 a day.
I
It is
remember that.
it's an alarming rate.
It is.
And the reasons why are a multitude of reasons why.
What
Uh,
can we do as civilians to help with that? Is there something? I mean,
yeah, those little things, let them know they matter.
okay,
You
that's
know,
what I was going for. That,
they matter, and let them know they matter. Let them know they're important. Ask them a question. How's your life? You know, what's going on? If you've got the time, give them lend them an ear just for a few minutes to
yeah.
say, hey, you know, or hey,
Don't just
how
say
you
how's it
doing?
going and then walk away. Stop
Thank
and
you for your
listen.
service. What are you doing in civilian life? You know,
Yeah,
just take the minute or two if you've got it, because just that acknowledgement can save a soldier's life. Just that
exactly.
one thing, that touch of another human being, and that somebody cares about what's happening with them, it can save their life.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you might be sitting back there in your office or wherever you might be listening to this
Mhm.
podcast and think, well, I don't even know any veterans. I can't help somebody. And you're probably wrong because there are more
Mhm.
veterans out there, and not all of them wear caps and none of them wear t-shirts. But
Right.
um, so in that regards, just be nice to everybody you see. But
Well, you
yeah, I mean,
be kind to everybody you see. Be kind to people. You never know what circumstances anyone is in, and one word of kindness can save someone's life.
yeah,
One expression of kindness can save someone's life. If you know of it and you have the opportunity, put your hand out, have a listening ear. You know, you never know what can happen. Did you want me to share the story of the grocery store clerk that I
please do.
told you about? Yeah. So one day I went to the grocery store and it was holiday time, and there's crazy number of people in there, as always during the holidays. Everybody wants to come in there at the last minute and get this, that, and the other thing. And there's this incredible long line. And I was one of those people that was waiting to get, I forgot something and I had to get something. And I'm just waiting patiently. And I'm watching person after person be grouchy and treat this person who is behind the counter. It was a woman who was behind the counter with disrespect. And they were really grouchy because she wasn't moving fast enough, or she was, da 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 da. About 8 people went through and treated her very poorly. And she just had this blank look on her face, and she looked so sad in her eyes. And when I got up to her, I paused and I said, "Are you okay? Because it's pretty rough today. Are you okay?" And she goes, "No, as a matter of fact, I'm not," and just started bawling. She said, "My dad died yesterday." And I said,
Oh man.
"What are you doing here?" I was in shock. I'm like, "What are you doing here?" And she goes, "Well, I got to work. I don't want to lose my job. I need my job." And I thanked her, and I told her everything was going to be okay. And I went straight to the manager. I took a few extra minutes and I went to the manager and I said, "Hey, did you know that her dad died yesterday?" And he went, "No, I didn't know it. I had no idea. You got to be kidding me." I'm like, "No," and she's afraid she'll lose her job. So she's here at work the day after her dad died. And he said, okay, we'll take care of it right away, I promise." And he walked straight over to her and he brought me with him. And he walked straight over to her and he goes, "Honey, you need to go home with pay for the next 3 days."
Nice.
because your dad dying is a reason not to come to work. I know it's the holidays and busy, but that doesn't. You're more important than all of this. I'll take your register. Go home now.
That was so
And
great of
that was
him.
one of the most beautiful stories that I have seen in a long time. And that was, she was so
Yeah.
afraid.
And all it
And
took was for you to ask a simple question. And
yeah.
nobody else bothered to notice that, how she looked or anything. But
Oh, I
she
heard
did.
people complaining about her,
Yeah.
saying that she was, she wasn't pleasant and she wasn't happy and it's the holidays and what's wrong with her. And I thought, no, something really deep. I'm an intuitive, so something really deep's going on here, and this isn't normal for her. And it's a beautiful story,
Yeah.
and I have a life full of those kinds of stories just because of taking 2 minutes, 2 minutes,
2 minutes.
two
That should
minutes.
be a that should be a title for a book.
Oh, yeah, you could do a compilation book.
Yes,
Yes,
2 minutes.
good. 2 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Yay!
I got goosebumps.
I can't wait for it to be released.
You can have it. You can have it. So speaking of books, let's talk about Get Out of the Box and Into the Play on a
Oh,
lighter
yeah, get
note.
out of the box and into play.
What does that mean?
A lasting relationship. That's the rest of the
Oh, did
title.
I not?
And yeah, the secret to a lasting relationship. So that tells you what it's about. It's really about the beginning of the book, and uh, I don't mean to insult people who are psychiatrists and psychologists and who've had a lot of training in that area, but it is a walk through how it is to develop as a child and an adult, and all of these limiting beliefs that we are handed. Please, if you read the book, don't think you're a bad parent. We all did the same things,
Oh, yeah.
So it's really a walk through the belief system, and how you approach life based on that belief system. And then it's a walk through how you can do simple changes, simple
Nice.
things in a relationship. This book is 108 pages. So it's a quick read. It's
Yeah.
easy to go through. There are simple things in there to do, and the book talks to you. It's as if I'm having a conversation with you. And
Nice.
that's exactly what that book is.
Those are so much easier to read. Thank you
Oh,
for that.
it is. It is. It's so easy to read, and like I said, don't mean to insult the psychology profession. If you are a psychologist or a psychiatrist and you're listening to this, I'm not insulting your
Am I going to have
intelligence.
to put a disclaimer?
But there's so many people out there who don't understand these basics, and I watered it down so that people could understand how that applies to a relationship, applies to a serious relationship, and how all of those beliefs can muck the waters of what can be a beautiful ocean together. And you
Nice.
can go and discover those things together and walk through it, and it doesn't have to be complicated. You want to delve into more serious things, you can, but this is a conversation.
Nice. 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 I'm going to have to read it. Thank you,
Thank
Kari, for
you.
coming on and being my guest today. There's so much there to think about and so many ways that we can be kind to each other. And thank you for those ideas.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate it.
This has been an absolutely fantastic experience. The best 30 minutes of my day so far, bar none.
Oh, cool beans. Me too.
Cool beans.
I could talk to you for hours.
I could too. And unfortunately my show's only 30 minutes long, so
Yeah.
I have to wrap it up. But yeah, thank you for the gift of your time today. I really, really appreciate it, and I really appreciate the insight. And I know our veterans today don't have it maybe as bad as the veterans coming back from Vietnam had it. I mean,
Mhm.
let's be honest, they had it a lot worse. And I think we're more conscious of it, but we can always do more.
We can always do more. Just 2 minutes.
2 minutes. There's that book again. All right. Thank you so much for your time today, Kari. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to maybe talking to you again.
Thank you.
Even before I was born, the United States had military troops in Vietnam, starting in the 50s and increasing in numbers until combat troops were deployed in 1965. As the war increased in scope and television and print journalism reported of the devastation from the ground, people back home began to oppose our presence there. The voices, angry about the war, grew in intensity, but it seemed that nobody in Washington was listening. Eventually, the anti-war people decided to take their anger out on anyone wearing a uniform. Reports of soldiers, sailors, and airmen being spit at and harassed, being referred to colloquially as baby killers, their cars egged, and much more. Thankfully, we have moved past that period in history. Today we are much more thankful for the men and women who put on a uniform and write a blank check to the United States of America to protect her and us from all enemies, foreign and domestic. This weekend, as we remember those who gave all in defense of freedom, family and friends, let's not forget those that came back. Thank you for the gift of your time today, friends. Please remember to be that person who roots for others, who tells a stranger that they look amazing, and encourages others to believe in themselves and their dreams. You've been listening to the Kindness Matters podcast. I'm your host, Mike Rathbun. Have a great week, and we'll see you back here next week.